Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the Daily Fix Fantasy and Frames DFS show. I'm your host, Keith Fleming, joined by two of my favorite people on this planet, Joseph the Brain Matz, and I got to come up with a nickname for Kevin. And Kevin, nickname to be determined later, Tompkins. So
TBD Tompkins, let's go.
That's it. There you go.
I like that. I do like TBD Tompkins. I may have to work on that. We're here to talk about the Week 10 DFS slate, but my man Ismail, first of all, thank you so much for your support each and every week. He's with us on the Sunday Social Show each week. We saw him like on the waiver. Like he checks out all of our program. Appreciate that. We also appreciate your donation, which allows us to do a lot of other cool stuff. Like I actually just got my Fantasy and Frames t-shirt. Thank you very much, Jorge, with my last name on it. Joe, did you get yours? Because I sent him your address.
I do. I have mine as well. Yeah.
Okay. I was real nervous because I know you've moved a couple of times. I was like, crap, I hope I didn't just send a shirt to some rando. Because I know that
they can represent too. They can represent.
I was just saying, them Joe Matt shirts are worth a lot of money in the street, so they probably would just held on to it. But he has a question right off the bat, and then we'll get into the Week 10 slate. He wants to know, should he start Mahomes or Herbert, or drop Herbert and pick up my boy Captain Kirk? He's playing Tyreek and Hopkins. If London does not play, which it does look like he's in the direction of playing this week, Javonte Williams or Demarcus Robinson or Shepard at flex. He wants to also add, and a lot of people are feeling your pain this Friday, Ismail, that he played Chase Brown, which that's good. He scored a touchdown, but unfortunately, he was also playing Jamar Chase, who decided, like he seems to do every time he plays the Ravens, to just become what would it be, like the morph of Jerry Rice and Randy Moss, because it's just
is Jamar Chase versus the Ravens the new Derrick Henry versus the Texans?
Ooh, now that's very good question, because Joe Matz used to talk about this on our
that was the go-to for a couple of years there. 100%.
Yeah. So that's loved having that show up. As for Ismail's question, I'm conflicted here because I'm very high on Herbert again this week. Like I really like him versus a Titans team that I know by the numbers their pass defense is pretty good. But again, if you look at who they played, Caleb Williams in his first career start, they played Malik Willis when he was quarterback for the Packers. They played Skylar Thompson and Tim Boyle when he was quarterback for the Dolphins. The Lions game, like I know Goff only threw for 87 yards, but that was because they put a 50 burger on them and all of it was basically right in the beginning of the game. So that skews a lot of their metrics, particularly with the passing yards. Like the touchdowns are actually pretty good. However, Kirk Cousins versus this Saints defense now without Marcus Lattimore, that's like really tough for me to say, you need to definitely play Herbert. I would slightly lean Herbert because, again, he's my guy. I like what I've seen out in the last few weeks. I think last week would have been much better. They just got up so big that they kind of set on it in the second half. And again, the Titans defense, I think if I had to pick, are they better versus the run or the pass? I actually think they're more stingy versus the run on a play-by-play basis because they have given up big plays. But where do you guys kind of fall on that? And then we'll get into the second part of his question.
Patrick Mahomes, I'm in. I'm slatified. He's got guys he's comfortable with now. Patrick Surtain be damned. I think that we're going to start seeing – this is the first QB1 week that Mahomes has had since, week 1?
Does it matter if Schuster plays to you or no?
I don't think so.
It's a bonus.
But it helps. I mean,
we'll take it.
What would Surtain be playing maybe off of Xavier Worthy? I mean, that's where I kind of lean. It depends on if he's going to be with him or if he's going to kind of shadow Hopkins. I trust Hopkins. We know a lot of that stuff for the Chiefs is short, with Kelsey, with Hopkins. And I think getting off the line, Hopkins being a professional receiver, getting off the line, I think he can kind of mitigate some of that. I mean, we know Surtain is going to be like right on him, but I do trust DeAndre Hopkins and Patrick Mahomes to be able to at least move the ball, Hunt to keep him honest. I'm going to stick with Mahomes here. I think we're going to start seeing better games out of him for fantasy purposes now that he has. I mean, we thought Juju Smith-Schuster was going to be it. He got hurt, kind of not his fault, but they went out and got Hopkins now. So now, yeah, they got Buffalo coming up next, and then Carolina. They got some easy games, but I think this is going to be a building block, to kind of build off of that game against Tampa. So I'm going Patrick Mahomes.
Joseph, you want to be a tiebreaker? You want to make this even more confusing and pick the third option?
I mean, if the Saints weren't so giving to opposing running backs, maybe I would be interested in that third option there with Cousins. But no, I'm with Kevin. It's Mahomes. He has 2 games this season where he's top 250 passing yards and had 2 passing touchdowns, and it's the last 2 games he's played. So to me, he's ramping up. He has, for the first time, and it feels like forever, he's a receiver that if it hits that receiver in the hands, you feel certain that guy will catch the ball. Mm-hmm. So that's a nice little bonus besides obviously Travis Kelce. So yeah, I remain very high on Mahomes. Is still awesome, and that will not just show up come the playoffs. It's going to come this second half of the season. I think if Mahomes is on your fantasy roster, you're going to feel pretty good for most of the second half of the season.
So Ismail, like America, we are a democracy. I have been outvoted. I am okay with this. I think both of these guys are very smart. So I will change.
We will have a very peaceful transition of power from Justin Herbert to Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah.
Patrick Mahomes is the guy. He asked about if London does not play, which again, all signs show that he is going to play. Raheem Morris is somebody, if you look at the coach speak meter, he is typically pretty open and honest about what he says about his players and their availability. He said that he thinks he will go. If he doesn't, I would probably, assuming this is PPR, lean towards Sterling Shepard and the flex. I just think you want that receiver in the slot. And Kansas City's run defense is so freaking good that like Javonte Williams is actually not a choice for me. It would be for me between Demarcus Robinson and Sterling Shepard. I assume that K-Dot, because you got K-Dot on the brain. Puka and Cup look like they because like Puka can play, right? Is it just does he miss the first? How does that work when you're ejected? Am I missing something there?
Is there something
like
that?
College?
I don't.
That's what I was asking.
Yeah, I was going to say I know in college. I'm not sure about the pros. I don't
think so. I don't think.
So I think that they're both good, right?
Both should be. Yeah, Cup's fine. Puka should be fine. I'm Demarcus Robinson. Honestly, I'm well over Sterling Shepard. I just think with the routes-based upside that Robinson has with the attention, Puka and Cooper Kupp,
I think we're going back to last year down the stretch where Robinson just feasted in these kind of scenarios.
Right. It helps to have single coverage. It helps that when you're on the field 98% of routes and 100% of snaps, Sterling Shepard, for all the good he's done. I mean, just looking at his game logs, 3 for 18, 4 for 48 the last 2 games, hasn't been over 73% of routes in either game. They're rotating those guys in between Shepard and Palmer and Ryan Miller and Marcus Callaway. And, you can't really pin one of those wide receivers to just run the routes and be there. It's just everything is spread out among the wide receivers, and Kate Otten is the one feasting. So for that, I'm very high on Demarcus Robinson, and kind of the same as I talked about Raven McLeod on the Waiver Wire show. It's the same bet on a similar offense, routes-based upside.
Ismail, I apologize. I did not realize he scored 5 touchdowns the last 4 weeks. That is the Demarcus Robinson from last season. So, yeah, once again, I will change my answer. Joe, you got anything else to add there, or you want to get into this week?
No, it sounds good to me, man. DeMarcus, I mean, I think that was a good question. I think that was kind of a tough call. Like you, I just, Javonte obviously biggest role there, but against Kansas City, I don't think I want a part of it. So I will co-sign DeMarcus Robinson.
And Mr. Magic, we will get to your question when we get to the wide receivers. I do want to cover the QBs and running backs first, since we're a DFS show and we're 10.5 minutes in and have not got to anything yet. But I promise you, we will get to your question, like probably in between the running backs and wide receivers. QBs this week. Can you explain to me, if you're going to spend up, why you would not play Jalen Hurts with the heater he has been on all of a sudden?
I'm going to tell you right now, I wanted to kind of do this as not a thought exercise, but like I wanted to switch up how I start to view these DFS slates. I have not looked at one single price. So this is the first that I am looking at this. I wanted to go in with it with fresh eyes and look at it and not kind of get, locked into, predetermined kind of things. But yeah, Jalen Hurts seems very attractive, even at the top dollar.
Well, explain this to me, because this is where I get confused with these pricings. He was 7,500 2 weeks ago, 7,800 last week. He's gone 35.1, 29.9, and they still have him at 7,800. That, from what I am starting to gather, means that his ownership has consistently not been very high, because I really do think that that's a deal. Like Justin Herbert is a prime example. We'll get to him in a minute. That I don't understand how his price is not going up when he's consistently hitting like 3-4x. But I know this just because I've been following it, because I've been playing him a lot. He's consistently been like 1 to 1.5% owned the last couple of weeks, which that would be the only justification for why his price is not rising, despite, again, the points, going up pretty much week after week. So unless it changes this week, and this might be the week, I guess the only counter and why people might want to stay away from it is Dallas with Cooper Rush. Maybe, Philly gets up big, but I don't know if it really matters with this offense. Versus Cincy, they were dominating that game. He scored 35 points. They won 28-3 versus the Giants. He scored 22.8 points. And goodness gracious, the last 3 weeks, this dude's got 6 rushing touchdowns. Which, if not for that, Barkley would be scoring 50 points a game at this point. So I just have a hard time. I get Josh Allen's $100 cheaper, but Josh Allen, since week 3, has not had a game where he scored more than 24.4 points. And he just doesn't seem to have the huge games at the rate that, Hurts does. Like, Hurts has been every bit as consistent in the sense that he's constantly scoring 20-plus points. Actually has done it more than Allen, but he's had more of these, explosion games, especially in this price range, than Allen has. What about Daniels? Because I know that I shouldn't take a drive and a half to kind of make me, go like, ooh, is this guy an interesting play this week? But I can't help but think back to Anthony Richardson versus the Steelers defense. I think it was like week 3 or week 4. He played all of 12 snaps. The Colts scored a touchdown. We're on the 6-yard line of Pittsburgh on the second drive, again in 12 plays. And then he got hurt and was out of the game. But before that, he was 3 or 4 for 71 yards. He already had 24 rushing yards. They have not really played any quarterbacks with this kind of athleticism or, skill set. And again, I don't even want to disrespect Daniels by comparing him to Richardson with skill set when it comes to the throwing standpoint, but you know what I mean, like the athletic standpoint. And maybe Daniels is the value this week. Again, my one concern would be Washington might be the good bad team this year. I looked it up. 4 of their 7 wins have came versus teams with 3 wins or less. There's 11 teams in the NFL with 3 wins or less. There's 11 teams with 6 wins or more. Only the Buffalo Bills have more wins versus teams with 3 wins and less. They have 5. Washington has 4. Their only game versus another really good team of 6+ wins. Baltimore, they lost that 30-23, granted in a competitive game. That was a Baltimore team, though, that not great defensively, obviously good offensively. This is the first defense that Jay Daniels has faced that is top 10 in DVOA. where are you guys on Daniels? Or would you rather just on this slate, if you're not interested really in any of these guys, going down and talking about the lower pros, dude, especially, since we're doing MME?
I mean, I think just because how close he is in price to Allen and Hurts and the quality of the giant gap in the quality of defenses between the Steelers versus the Cowboys and Colts, there's no way I'm going Daniels. I mean, it's always possible. He's super talented. Like you said, we briefly saw the Steelers defense struggle with a quarterback of not similar skill because Daniels seems to be much better, but similar, high end ability. So Daniels is not there for me. And I would lean Allen over Hurts. And it's mostly because Cowboys defense is a disaster across the board. So I don't think you're wrong that this could be a super productive game for everyone. But they're even worse against the run than they are against the pass, which is not the case with the Colts, where they're a pretty average run defense. You look at DVOA, they're 17th. PFF run defense grade, I think they're 10th or 11th. So the way to attack the Colts is just destroy that soft zone. And I especially like Shakur to do that as well. So I think that's, a very reasonable double right there if you're going with Allen. But
even if Cooper's out, Joe, are you okay with that? Because we know Coleman's out. Cooper is questionable. Right. If both of those guys out, do you actually think that makes him more valuable because it's more likely he runs? Like, where do you kind of fall?
Yeah, I think that is the interesting thing because, we've seen what Josh Allen can do running, where I don't know that I would fade him. And again, that just makes me like my Shakir double even more. So, I mean, probably you downgrade Allen a little bit if both those guys are out, and maybe then the lean is Hurts. But yeah, for me, it's definitely I'm going with one of those two guys if I'm on the high end, and probably for most of my lineups, I'll be dropping down anyway.
Yeah, like Buffalo's just not running a lot of plays, like in total, and Josh Allen hasn't had a game above 9 rushing attempts this season. So clearly, that's a point of emphasis for Buffalo to not get Josh Allen.
Smart,
right? It is smart. The guy you paid, $200-something million. Like that's why you drafted a guy. That was the thesis of you draft a guy like Ray Davis, where granted they haven't used it that much, and they've used James Cook, and like Khalil Shakir has been by design an extension of the run game with how he's used so close to the line of scrimmage. But yeah, Daniels is going to come in like super, like right now he's like the 4th highest projected ownership, and I just
is he really? That was kind of the reason I was leaning, was I figured he would be low on versus the opposite.
I'm also stressed.
Yeah, I mean, my first inclination would be that's wrong. Like, I think that's just wrong, and I think that's going to be much lower because you only have to pay $300 for Jalen Hurts. So
right, that's what I was. Yeah. So what is Hurts right now? Number 1.
Right now, actually, it's Sam Darnold.
That makes sense.
That makes a lot more sense to me.
Yeah. Top 3 or top 5. Well, I'll go top 4 because we're going to talk about it. It's Darnold, Purdy, Justin Herbert, and Daniels. So Jalen Hurts isn't even in the top.
Oh, that's interesting. 10. So maybe the pivot is towards the two guys at the top, because I was going to say the obvious guys to me were Purdy and Darnold, and then if you wanted to go super cheap, Herbert. So obviously everyone's on the same page there. Yeah. So maybe the pivot is towards Hurts Allen.
Yeah, the flipping of the quarterback position.
Herbert in the low 5Ks is actually, because I was shocked last week. I thought for sure it was like 1.5%. I'm pretty sure, at least in both the contests I was in, both a big one and a smaller, it was like either 1 or 1.5%. So maybe people, if you don't mind me asking, because QB is one of those weird ones. Is anybody over like 10%? Because I know normally if it's like 10, 15%, that's like monster own for a QB, where other positions you'll see guys like 30, 40%.
Right.
Yeah, I've got Darnold. This is all from Rotoballer, by the way.
Right, yeah.
10.7% for Sam Darnold is the highest. So it's really spread out ownership between all those top guys. But yeah, it's like the quarterback flipping where we're usually going, pay down. You can, get wide receivers cheap. I mean, you can do that. You could do that in any slate. But, if you're really trying to pinpoint highest upside, you're not going to go out and pay a $5,800 quarterback with the way this is going. The way this is going, it's Hurts and Allen and than possibly even Daniels, which, like I said, I think that ownership is going to come in a lot. I think it's going to be sub 5% for Daniels.
So safe to say, Kev, that Patrick Mahomes is definitely a guy you want to talk about with the way you answered that question at 6,600.
Yeah. I want a lot of Mahomes. Like if I'm doing multiple lineups, like if I'm doing just like some MME lineups, I want Patrick Mahomes. I want some Darnold because I just want to sprinkle in Jefferson and whatever I can do there. But yeah, it'll be Mahomes. It'll be Darnold. Looking at it, I don't even mind Bo Nix because we know what he can do on the ground. Yeah. I think he'll come in at low ownership because it's not quite the scarlet letter. It's literally scarlet because it's the Kansas City Chiefs. That is the scarlet letter because we know the Chiefs defense is pretty solid. And, it's Denver who doesn't, might as well be employing the little sisters of the poor outside of Cortland Sutton at wide receiver.
Joe, go in any direction you want. Who are you circling this week?
I mean, the hard part is, I think the plays that make the most sense to me are Darnold and Purdy. I mean, I'm not surprised at the ownership because these are not ones where you had to even do a lot of research for it to be like, oh, these guys make sense. Because you just look at that, hey, how do the Jags do against quarterbacks? And it's like, well, they're a fucking disaster. So I think I saw earlier that there's only been one game all season in which the opposing quarterback against the Jags has not finished top 12 in fantasy points, and that was because Jordan Love got knocked out of the game. So that team is the easiest to attack that you can. And again, Jefferson is, I think, kind of far and away, especially since Jamar Chase already played, the number one receiver in this slate. Mm-hmm. So that combo makes sense.
Over 3 points per target versus man, something the Jaguars run.
Yeah, like all of his man splits are fucking insane. So I think that one was a really easy one to look at.
I believe Darnold's much better versus man as well, right? Just overall.
Yes, I believe that was the information I remember talking about a few weeks ago. I'm pretty sure that was it. And then Purdy against. Yeah, go ahead.
Oh, I'm just gonna say, and that's the thing with Darnold. You gotta hope he, as in the wrestling biz, get your shit in. You gotta hope Sam Darnold gets his shit in because I can't I can't think of a world where Mac Jones is keeping up to any degree with Minnesota to make Minnesota to push them to scoring 40 points or even if the Jags score 20 points, I don't even know if I can see that.
And you got to worry about Aaron Jones going off because Jacksonville has been really bad versus the New England game has been the one exception, I think, in the last 6. Well, that was a game that Jacksonville got up early. What they ran 21 straight times.
Yeah, the one in London.
Yeah. So, Minnesota, I think I wouldn't be surprised. Obviously, I do like Jefferson even at 8,800 just because he's so good versus man. They run man at such a high rate, but I think outside of Jefferson, I actually like, even maybe an Akers-Jones combo where you just see a ton of them just, pounding the rock versus wait a minute, did I get Akers mixed up again? Where is it? He is the backup in Minnesota now, right? Did I get that wrong?
He is. Oh, yeah. Okay. Ty Chandler didn't play a snap, so.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Mac Jones because I do want to bring him up, 4,400.
Oh, that's true.
I know it's gross. I get it, but it's rare. It's so rare when you get these QBs under 5K. He was really good. I know it's preseason. Again, all these I know. I get it. But he was really good this preseason. He had a very good connection with Parker Washington. They hooked up 6 times for 70 yards and a touchdown on, I think it was only 8 drives together. And the big thing, again, I know these are different teams. I know this was a long time ago. In 2020, opposing QBs versus Brian Flores defenses, 62.9 completion percentage, 251 passing yards per game, 87 passer rating. Mac Jones in his 2 games versus Brian Flores, 74.4 completion percentage, 281 yards per game, 102.6 passer rating. He has historically been very good versus the blitz. It's actually teams would just drop back in more of a coverage zone when he had more issues. Now, Brian Flores is the kind of coordinator that I believe that if, and I believe he will know this, you may actually see them not blitz quite as much because of that. The other thing, though, that scares me is New England's offensive line was much better in 2020, and they did not just trade their left tackle, which Jacksonville did, which is like the ultimate throwing up the white flag on the season. But again, for 4,400, and when you're trying to build lineups, I can throw Mac Jones and Parker Washington together, who I think they can absolutely get 3-4 times their salary at a combined, what would they be, like 8,200 or something crazy? Then we can go literally wherever we want with the rest of it. So for MME, that is why I am recommending that. Any other QBs we want to highlight before we move on to the RBs?
I mean, just again on the Purdy play that everyone seems to be in on. I mean, Tampa Bay has given up 17 passing touchdowns over the last 5 weeks. And one of those games was against Spencer Rattler, where he only threw 1 touchdown. So the other 4 games, you're getting at least 3 touchdowns and at least 270 yards in all 4 of those games.
It's pretty good.
So, yeah, you feel all right about having a quarterback going against that defense right now.
Can I give you one other name? Because nobody said it. I kind of like Aaron Rodgers this week at 5,700 versus Arizona. And if you do that, obviously you have to go all in, double stack him with Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams. And let me pull up these numbers. I apologize, but I want to make sure I get all this stuff correctly. So their first week together, 18 of 39 pass attempts went to Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson. Second week, 14 of 28. So we went from 46 to 50%. Last week, 21 of 32. That is 53 of the 99 pass attempts that Aaron Rodgers has made since Devontae Adams has joined the team. Kevin talks all the time about condensed offenses and how valuable it is to have condensed offenses where you know where the ball is going. We know where the ball is going in the passing game for the Jets. And then, oh, by the way, Rodgers versus the blitz, something that Arizona does at one of the higher rates in the NFL. They blitz at like 42% of plays overall. They blitz 46% of the time on third down. Last week versus the blitz, he was 8 of 12, 100 yards, 2 passing touchdowns. He has 2 guys that where if the Cardinals decide they're going to tee off, that is the benefit of having Devontae Adams and Garrett Wilson, is you got 2 dudes that can flat out smoke people one-on-one. And I do think that triple stack is interesting because it's going to cost you 39% of your salary. But this is a group that has scored basically 152 points. That trio has their last 3, with 97.5 of those points coming last week. And that's what they can do as a trio for, what would that be? I'm sorry, again, I'm not great. 14.2 plus 15.7, $19,900 worth of your salary. So I do like Aaron Rodgers, again, with the caveat, if you're going to do that, you go all in and pair it with both Adams and Wilson.
I like that. No complaints here. And it's, you know, I don't have anything to snarky to say about Aaron Rodgers. I mean, yeah, let me think of something. Give me a couple minutes. But I mean,
how about I got a snarky thing or interesting thing? His odds right now are higher for him to win the presidency in 2028 than it is for him to win the Super Bowl next year. Hi-yo.
Wow.
All right.
I mean, you know, we talk about the Call of Duty narrative for Kyler Murray. Is there a thing where if Aaron Rodgers gets an uptick in production when he goes on Joe Rogan, or?
There we go.
Yeah, he's going to take Joe Rogan's seat, like JD Vance trying to become Trump's heir apparent. I can see Aaron Rodgers trying to become Joe Rogan's. They'll fit in nicely. Let's move on to the running backs this week. And like I said, Mr. Magic, I promise you, we'll get your question after we get through with the running backs. Saquon at this point, do you mind? Because that was a great exercise. Will you just go over the top 4 percentage ownership guys, Kevin, if you don't mind?
4 running backs. Aaron Jones, 30% projected ownership. Alvin Kamara, 25. Breece Hall, 21. Bijan, 21. And I have no problems with any of those.
No. The only thing I have with Kamara is we saw with Taysom Hill last time the Saints played the Falcons. He vultured both the rushing touchdowns in the red zone. He vultured one last week. That is the only reason. But Kamara, we saw it last week, not only with the rushing side, but just all the receptions with all those dudes out, to where I'm with you, Kev. Like overall, I can't argue with that. Let's get right to me the interesting one. CMC looks like he's playing. We have no idea what kind of snap count. We have no. But that's why, to me, what does you have his projected ownership right there? Because I would assume it would be low. A lot of people don't want to take the risk on him right off the bat, and that's why I'm intrigued by him.
7th highest at 13.3%.
Wow. Okay. Never mind. I take back everything that I was about to talk about. Because
I was shocked when I read that. Like,
that is nuts. So never mind. I would rather just take the Bijan or any of those guys that are, again, going to be more owned. So is then Jonathan Taylor. What is Jonathan Taylor's ownership versus the 31st best run defense?
Jonathan Taylor's right below him at 12.7. Like, the thing with CMC is like, so the only like situation that you can really compare this to was like when he was first traded from Carolina to San Francisco, when they had Elijah Mitchell there and kind of taking carries anyway. How was CMC going to fold into that? Well, he worked his way in kind of, and Jordan Mason's off the injury report, correct?
They say he's gonna play. I'm just so scared with the way his shoulders worked the last few weeks that even if he's slated, or planned to get a majority of the carries, what happens if he immediately nicks it up again?
Yeah, so you can see that. I could see that split kind of. That's what happened with him and Elijah Mitchell in 2022, where that backfield was pretty much split for the first couple weeks, and then we started to see CMC come on, but Mitchell was still involved. I think we can see something like that with CMC and Mason, where Mason maybe isn't taking all of those hits. I think he's going to still take, the 20-yard line, the 20-yard line touches that maybe are a little bit less meaningful to where CMC is going to see, where CMC is going to see a lot of the high volume or the high leverage touches, the green zone touches, red zone touches. But is that worth 8,000? That's no. I mean, it's a good offensive environment.
Yes.
Right. You're paying.
I'm with you as well.
You're playing Tampa Bay, so that's like one thing. But at 8,000, that just seems a bit frothy to me.
Because I will say the one thing that Mason does not do, and that CMC does, and this was going to be part of my spill, because I'm shocked. I did not expect his ownership to be anywhere near that. Was Tampa Bay's allowed 16 receptions to opposing running backs in their last 3 and 5 touchdowns, pass catching touchdowns in their last 3. So that was why I was all, CMC is going to be relatively low owned. Let's go. But hearing that, I have no desire. The guy I want to talk about then is DeAndre Swift. I know people are going to want to be off of him because he finally kind of ended his 20-point streak. I think it was 4 straight. But the big deal is New England. God, Joe, you brought this up a week or 2 ago, and so I had to go back and look. Their last 5 games, just 2 running backs, 788 yards allowed on the ground. And I mean, I made sure that was just 2 running backs. That's not wide receivers, QBs.
Right.
Over 5 yards per carry, 6 touchdowns. I like even more that Caleb Williams, questionable. At best, he's going to play with a nicked up ankle. What does that mean? Probably going to lean on their own. And then on top of that, this is a desperation time for the Chicago Bears. They were 4-2, looking to move to 5-2, and then what are we calling it? The hell, I don't know. What are they calling the Hail Mary there? Did they get a name for it?
Oh, I don't even know, honestly.
Good question.
Well,
I haven't heard one.
I came up with something witty if I knew that there. I thought Hail Maryland, I think, is what I had seen or something like that.
Okay.
That's not bad.
But I expect the Bears to just lean on the run this week. And I think Swift at 6,500 versus this Pats D is a very, very juicy matchup. When, again, this is a guy that had scored 20 points or more in 4 straight. And even last week in what felt like that game got out of control completely the other way. He still scored 14.2 points. Saw, I think, 14 carries, caught 6 passes. Like, he has become the clear number 1 back. So I do like him this week. Who is like your guy's first guy that you're like, pump that guy into my veins this week in MME? I mean, you don't have to both go at the same time, though. Just take your time.
Oh, I was waiting for Joe. I thought he had something.
He's got a stinking face on. Once he gets like this, Kev, you know you got a few minutes.
I mean, my thing is,
Wills.
when I look at this slate of running backs, I think there's a lot of guys up top that are super intriguing. Obviously, love the Saquon play against Dallas. Kamara kind of just is the offense in New Orleans.
What was his ownership? I'm sorry, Joe. Did you say what Barkley's ownership was? Kev?
Barkley's was 9%, 9.5%.
Wow, that is not bad.
Yeah. So it feels like a lot of lineups I'm going to have are going to be built around Saquon Barkley. Bijan, I love that matchup. Honestly, my cheapest play this week is probably just going like, hey, Tyler Algier, this feels like one of those. We're just pounding the rock all day and destroying whatever sliver of life is still in New Orleans.
He's the inverse of what I was talking about. How does he go up 300 with what he's done the last few weeks? But that's okay. Like I thought we were going to get
because they're playing New Orleans.
I get that, but they were playing like Carolina 2 weeks. You know what I mean? Like he's had some pretty good matchups, and it's just like all of a sudden it kind of bipped up.
The thing I'm looking at, and is I'm just kind of putting Algier out of my periphery and out of my mind. And with Bijan getting a receiving floor now, like 6 and 7
receptions and 2 straight. Hello.
Like that's what we want. You know, we've been seeing out of like Kenneth Walker, these running backs that have like the top end outcomes, the legendary upside, if you will, of these running backs.
It's the rushing for QBs, right? Like it's the exact same thing that their floor each week is so much higher.
You're looking for the running backs that can get you like 10 expected points in the receiving game. Like that's what you want. And so like it's a smash spot for Bijan, I think, to be able to get a couple touchdowns, 100 total yards. I mean, you're sitting pretty with that. Like James Cook against, we know Indianapolis has had their issues with the run game throughout the entire season. I do like James Cook there. I just want him to get a little bit more volume. They're not even. That's the thing.
We always want that with James Cook.
Right. Well, that's the thing. I was to say they're not even like really using Ray Davis that much in the run game, and they're not using they're just passing. They're using as like the Latavius Murray.
Right.
So, I mean, it sucks for that. But
Ty Johnson, to your point, like who seems to have he gets most of the receptions. It seems like lately out of
he's literally a space filler. Like he is the most empty 29% snap share in the NFL.
Very good point.
Like, just give me James Cook, let him rip off like a 55-yard touchdown, and that should be enough with some volume to get there at 7K. Other than that, Aaron Jones, we talked about it, 30% ownership projected at 6,700 against the Jaguars. That's a pretty good price. Swift is a good. Najee Harris, I don't even mind either against Washington.
I like him a lot.
I wish, for the love of God, that they would just let Jalen Warren cook just a little bit.
It'd be nice.
Give him Najee's got all three. He's got the 2 front burners. He's got the back right burner. All Jalen Warren needs to do is just put a little pot of mac and cheese on.
We'll even take some bold peas at this point, right, Kev? Like that's how desperate we are. We'll take bold peas. You ain't got to make nothing fancy.
Najee's got the microwave. He's relegated Jalen Warren to the easy bake oven.
I know this is going to be another gross one. I don't know why I keep throwing these out, but Rico Dowdle at 6,100 really intrigues me if we assume that Zeke is going to be punished. Because I know they said he will be active.
We've been punished enough.
Right? No kidding. Amen to that. And it's just like all of a sudden, I didn't know this. Dowdle has scored double-digit points on DK in 4 straight, averaging 16.25 points per game in that span. The big thing for me, he's caught 5 or more passes in 2 of his last 3, had a receiving touchdown in 3 or 4, kind of what Kevin was talking about these running backs with the passing upside. The big deal is we know Cooper Rush is starting at QB. For me, I immediately think, okay, that means more passes are probably going to the running backs, and more passes are probably going to the tight ends. And he played again, season high 72% of snaps. We'll see how much Zeke gets put back into the offense. But if he gets around that 70% number in a game that I expect Philly to be up, I expect, obviously them to have to throw the ball a lot. I think he can again, score 15 to 25 points basically just on passing volume. And then, oh, by the way, he had like 70 yards rushing last week, which I know we laugh about how bad my Falcons defense is, which it is. They're pretty good versus the run. That was actually pretty impressive. He had a really good day in terms of yards per carry and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, Dowdle, so the season highs for routes and snaps for Rico Dowdle. Season high 43% week 4, season high 50% week 5. Last week shattered both of those, 73% snap share, 64% routes. So it only took like 7 weeks to do it, but we could be seeing they have to know what they have or don't have in Dalvin Cook at this point. I know you want just run Hunter Lipke out if you really want to change the pace, because it's not any of these octogenarians that you're trying to trot out there between Zeke and Dalvin Cook. Just let Rico Dowdle be a workhorse-ish running back and just let him, he'll get there. That's Rico Dowdle has been pretty solid throughout the season. And I don't think that, Cooper Rush is not great, but he is certainly one of the better backup quarterbacks. It certainly helps to have a Jake Ferguson. Right? It helps to have CeeDee Lamb. I don't care how, banged up he is. He's still better than 85% of the wide receivers in the league. But I'm not downgrading really any of these guys other than Tolbert maybe. I'm not downgrading a lot of these Cowboys guys. I'm not starting Cooper Rush.
Especially the volume, right? Their volume should actually, in my opinion, go up, because I just think they're going to be down even more early, and just, you got to throw it. You just have to. Right. Any of these guys intriguing to you? Again, Cam Akers, I mentioned 4,700 as the backup to Jacksonville. Didn't he see 35% or 40% of the snaps last week? 6 carries, 46 yards, 2 receptions, 7. Let's say that game gets out of hand early. Why would you put Miles on Aaron Jones when you don't have to? Again, Johnson for the Bears, another guy. Khalil Herbert is now gone. Not that he was really eating into his carries anyway, but I'm just saying now it's that's basically all you have behind DeAndre Swift. New England, we just talked about it, 766 yards over their last 5. And then the Washington guys, Eckler to me is a little too expensive versus Pittsburgh for me to get really fired up. But if I could figure out, is it going to be McNichols or Rodriguez behind them at 44 and 4,300? And let's say Washington surprises me and their offense is that good and they kind of feast on Pittsburgh and get up. Is that something? Because again, in these MME lineups, when there's so many expensive guys like Jefferson, Barkley, the Hurts, that we've already mentioned, without even really getting through 2 positions, all these expensive guys we like, you're going to have to play some of those guys in order to justify it. And you don't need 25, 30 point gains from them. You just need 12 to 20 points. Let them, do plenty well enough for their price, but they don't have to necessarily go, ham or whatever. Any of those guys really intriguing to you?
I'm totally down with Eckler. He's gotten there with some receiving. He's looked a lot better this season. He's not going to get a ton of volume on the ground because they seem to want to just run Jeremy McNichols and Chris Rodriguez into the ground for whatever reason. And I don't mind that. It's going to take tread off of Eckler's tires, but then when you get to touchdown equity, that's where you have the problem with it. So you really have to hope that he gets there on receiving. So that's where you can kind of see that 5,800 price tag be well, it's fine, but it's not if you're paying up on players and you got to cut salary somewhere. So playing Eckler at 5,800 is not a bad way to do it. That game that game just has the makings of a 20 to 12 game, just something
that's
weird.
Good point. Yeah, no, I think that's very fair.
Yeah, I was going to say in that price range, obviously there's a risk because the snap shares are kind of all over the place and everything. But if I'm trying to save money at running back, I might throw in one of the Bucs guys because prior to facing the Kansas City juggernaut where they just don't let running backs do anything, Bucky Irving had 3 straight 15-point games. The last 3 weeks, Rachaad White has had 13 receptions for 125 yards and 3 scores.
He's been really fantasy valuable. Like I was so wrong. Like right about him not being a good running back, but shit, he scored 9.6 points or more in every game but 2 this season.
Right,
but not expected that.
A lot of that, is just that receiving value. Which again, all their star receivers are all hurt. So
12.5 points last week, 3 carries. To your point.
Yeah, and that huge game against the Ravens was entirely pretty much driven by he had 2 receiving scores, a bunch of receptions. And they're facing San Francisco, who, again, I expect to feast. Even if McCaffrey wasn't coming back, I'd expect them to feast against the Tampa Bay defense. So now all the more so. So we're talking about even more passing situations. That's why I would lean Rachaad over Bucky, even though generally the way to attack the San Francisco defense has been to run the ball, which – in that case, I favor Bucky, but the game script makes me think Rachaad. One of my season-long leagues, I've just been starting both of them for like 6 straight weeks because my running backs are not good. And it's surprising, it's kind of just worked out. So that's given me some appreciation for these guys. So, yeah, if I'm saving money, I think I would lean them over Eckler just because I think Kevin's right where I could see that Steeler-Washington game not being a lot of points. I mean, that game could kind of go in any direction for me. Whereas San Francisco-Tampa Bay feels like, we're probably headed north of 50 on the total. And granted, more of that will probably be San Francisco. But, Baker's kind of played well regardless. So I think he finds a way to move them down the field. And if that's happening, these 2 guys should be involved.
To further your point, Todd Bowles has not been good facing coaches coming off a bye. I believe it's 0-7 in his tenure in Tampa. And Shanahan, pretty smart guy, giving him an extra week. The only guy that we have not mentioned that I just want to touch on real quick, J.K. Dobbins, 7,200. The Vidal, however you say it, starting to sit. He saw 11% of the snaps last week, okay? So you're getting a guy getting 89% of the snaps. Titans run D, I don't want to say that, they're good, but they've also allowed 7 touchdowns to opposing running backs in their last 3. So you can get in the end zone as a running back, and just Dobbins is getting so much volume. 14 rush attempts in 7 straight, at least, averaging 22 touches per game when you account his receptions and rush attempts over his last 4. And again, I like Herbert. I think this Chargers offense is really rounding into shape. And like I was telling people, actually, if you're going to play Herbert this week, I would not stack him with one of those receivers because, 1 week it's Johnson, 1 week it's Ladd. Right. I would stack him with Dobbins and just hope I get a little bit of both of that action. And we've talked about this. Kevin brought this up a few weeks ago, and I've been using it to some success of a good way to differentiate your lineups is to do something that people don't expect, where you play a QB and stack them with a running back if you like the offense, particularly when they're the 2 constants, right? Herbert's been scoring basically 20 points or more, and Dobbins has been scoring 18 points or more. So,
yeah, it's a good bet on the offense, certainly to do that. I just wanted to add one quick note on Rachaad White, by the way. He would be RB20 just in receiving points the last 3 weeks.
Wow.
Just in receiving points, 14.2. Right. Receive PPR points he's averaged in the last 3 weeks. If no rushing, RB20. So
he's the Drake May of wide receivers. Because remember we talked about last night, Drake May is averaging right at 8 points per game and rushing, and he's averaging.
If he can make a play like he did with throwing to Ramondre Stevenson, I will call him Drake May till the cows come home.
Amen.
I'll tell you that. Till then.
Oh, go ahead. Because I just have one quick point on Dobbins, and that's just. Chargers losses this year, 39 yards per game. Chargers wins, 101 yards per game. And again, they're facing the Tennessee Titans. So
with what's his name coming back, it looks like Will Levis. So
for whatever that's worth, I mean, if anything, I think that helps. That feels like a boost to the Chargers defense to me more than anything.
I agree. I thought Titans actually looked better with Rudolph, which is
it was a competent offense. That's I mean, as competent as you can be with Mason Rudolph, I suppose. But
right.
Calvin Ridley, get ready to learn 10 targets and 2 catches, buddy.
Right. I hope.
Right, the ball goes where it's supposed to.
Fly or stretch Armstrong.
Is he going to be able to support Nick Westbrook-Ikhine? I don't know.
Oh man, and Tajay Spears coming back. It's
like Rudolph's sack rate is like a third of I think Levis's. So that just that makes a huge difference when you're not an explosive offense and you need to kind of keep the chains moving.
And you have a Bosa brother coming. All right, let's get to Mr. Magic's question. We'll move on to wide receivers.
Let's do it.
Rest of the year, Debo or Tyreek?
Debo.
Do you really over Tyreek, even if Tua is healthy?
He's not the focal point. Like right now, he's not the focal point of the offense. We have to adjust when things aren't the way they've used to be. Tyreek and Waddle, for all the talk about condensed offenses, have averaged like 50% of the targets the last like 3 seasons. And now, Tyreek and Jalen Waddle are on a milk carton, might as well be, compared to what they're doing. And almost rightly so compared to how Devon Achan's playing. Like the offense is flowing through Achan, through receiving, through rushing. And it's almost like all of these guys are afterthoughts. And Tyreek can always have his spike week. It's going to happen. We're talking about just rest of season. Give me the consistency and the offensive environment in San Francisco with Debo.
All that makes a lot of sense. I would still lean Tyreek. I know the injuries are on both parts because you got to deal with Tua. Debo just can't seem to stay healthy. I do like him so much more with CMC being back. Like to me, it makes him such a more dynamic threat because defenses, they're crowding up, but they're not crowding up because they're worried about Debo catching a 4-yard pass over the middle. Or
he gets to play wide receiver now. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's fair.
Is that he's going to get those? He's going to get the long 8-out stuff now that Ayuk was going to get. We've seen when Debo was just playing wide receiver, when he doesn't have to worry about the rushing stuff. Debo is awesome, like completely awesome. No Ayuk. A banged up Juwan Jennings, Ricky Pearsall, those guys are fine. This offense, if it's going to be through the passing game, it's going to be Kittle and Debo. And now that these guys are back healthy, we know it's going to be like, all right, who gets to sit out of like the party that San Francisco has? And I don't know if it's going to be Debo as much as like maybe it will be Kittle or maybe it'll be just completely shutting out Pearsall or shutting out Juwan Jennings.
I do think Jennings is going to continue to play a role, but I agree with you. The Debo, like on the pecking order, it's going to go CMC once he's up to speed, and then probably Debo, Kittle in some order.
I'll tie break in favor of you on this one, Keith. It's between the injuries and the mouths to feed. I would still go Tyreek. Obviously the injury risk in Miami is basically Tua, but everything tanks. But I would still lean Tyreek. I don't think either of these guys will be in my top 10 wide receivers the rest of the season. But just because when you have to pass, he is still the very clear guy where, with Debo, it just depends on so much. But it is very close.
The wide receiver this week, of course, it looks like Nico Collins is going to play. And I can't use him in the slate because he's playing the primetime game. But God,
is he going to play? I don't know. It's been very iffy.
I thought I read today that they just took him off the IR officially. And I'm sorry, what I read something right before.
He's still questionable.
He is, but his status changed.
Right, his status his actual league roster status changed.
And he's back at practice, which is the other big part. So they both designate him, and he's back at practice. I think it looks like
that just opened up his window, though. Really?
Yeah.
Well, I know, but we've seen this with other teams. You're right about that, but we've seen this with a lot of other teams, including like CMC this week, who he's technically questionable, but they've already came out and said he's probably going to play. Jefferson, I don't want to spend a lot of time on it because there's no point to. The big thing, again, Jacksonville runs man all the time for NFL standards. Joe talks about this, it seems like every week, that, yes, it's only like 44, 45, whatever the percentage is, but that's so much in the NFL where everybody seems to run like 70 to 75% of zone defense. And Jefferson, to be, 10 weeks into the season and still averaging over 3 freaking fantasy points per target. I mean, what's even crazier is his win rate versus man is not very good this year. And his target rate isn't outrageous, but it's just what he does when he gets those targets that just absolutely just torch people. Are you guys in agreement? You don't want any part of CeeDee Lamb this week at his price tag?
Yeah,
I'm not really.
Yeah, I'm with you.
Yeah, you'd have to really sell me on that, and even then, I'm still kind of hands off.
Again, it's $200 more for the fire matchup with Justin Jefferson. Where, I mean, granted, I was so wrong about AJ Brown like a week ago, but that's a very different offense. That's a very different offense.
He got hurt too, which that was a big part of that.
But yeah, that's also a different offense where Saquon or Devonta Smith can have huge games. You're not surprised. Obviously, the Aaron Jones ownership tells us that Aaron Jones could have a big game, but in this passing offense, there's no one close to Justin Jefferson. And yeah, again, the matchup is insane. So compare that to the Eagles, who have a pretty good secondary, and you've got Cooper Rush, which, Rush, I don't, as far as I remember, Lamb didn't tank when Rush came in previously, but at this price point, it's a no for me.
Again, I like the running backs and tight end. In this spot, I promise you, we'll get to your questions as we get done with the wide receivers. The Eagles guys, to me, like I'd have to see their ownership, but they're both, to me, just a little too expensive in a game that I just expect the Eagles to roll. To me, if I'm going to spend up, I would rather, again, do the stack of Barkley and Hurts, or just play either Hurts or Barkley naked. Than play either one of those wide receivers versus the Cowboys, because it seems like these teams that really get that sometimes they'll just run it down teams' throats. That's what people have been doing to Dallas, even to a certain extent. Atlanta did it last week. I know that obviously Cousins ended up getting the touchdowns, which is always the danger. But if you look, he didn't throw for that many passing yards. He actually didn't have like a ton of pass attempts for what he's had in recent weeks. Where I get, again, like just really excited is Garrett Wilson, Devontae. You could talk me into either one of those guys. I like playing them with Rodgers, like both of them. You could tell me into playing either one of them individually. If you had to pick one of them, which one do you guys like better?
I think I want Garrett Wilson, honestly.
I think I would say that as well. I'd still go Wilson.
By the way, those Philly receivers, neither of those guys are top 20 in projected ownership.
Okay, so that does change right there.
They're high up.
You do that real quick too, Kevin, too. It's like the top 4 or 5 receivers.
So just to add on, the AJ Brown is about 5%. Devonta Smith is like 1.5%. So
wow. Oh yeah, Smith will be in some lineups just for that.
Yeah, he's like bottom like 40. Josh Downs is the highest projected ownership at about 20%.
Makes sense again.
No surprise.
DeAndre Hopkins, Devontae Adams, Justin Jefferson, Ladd McConkey.
Look at Ladd.
15%.
All right.
At 5,900 though.
Does the Titans run man a lot or no? Or is that just people are just enamored with Ladd?
Who isn't enamored with Ladd?
Well, I mean, I'm like the OG Ladd guy. Who are you talking to? But I just mean that kind of does surprise me.
Titans are 12th in man rate according to the DFS article.
Okay. I wish London was 100% coming into this game, because without Lattimore, I would be smashing that. I probably still will have him in some lineups, but Pickens is the guy that I know Washington just got Lattimore, but do we really think he's going to be up to speed and anywhere near like the Lattimore you expect? And I'm a big, like, to me, what did I say, Joe? Who was it that a few years ago, it was Mike Evans, remember? Like, and he ended up having that like 35, 40-point game. I think it was on Thanksgiving or where I kept saying like that big game, like where has it been?
It's gonna happen. I
know Pickens has had two, like a 20 and 25-point game, but I'm telling you, like, this guy has the talent, and I feel like with Russell that there is going to be a week for the end of the season where he has like 200 yards and 2-3 touchdowns. Not saying it's this week. That's not at all what I mean. I just mean for MME where we're taking shots at people. I do believe that game for Pickens is coming at some point. So he's intriguing. are y'all kind of with me that Brian Thomas, like super talented receiver, if you want to play him, it's fine. But with how much Minnesota blitzes, a new left tackle, are they really going to have time? Is Mac Jones going to have time to do what Brian Thomas does best, which is like really get down the field and make big plays?
Like, I don't know, the Brian Thomas thing, like, I want to play it. I'll play it to Parker Washington. I'll play it to Evan Ingram. That mid-tier of receiver, like, I look at Downs, I look at Mooney, and I'm fine with those options. Other than that, does not do a damn thing. Like, DJ Moore does not do anything for me. Marvin Harrison.
I'm way out on DJ Moore this week.
At 6K.
I like Shakir.
And for me, it's even bigger if Cooper is out as well. And again, you don't have no Cooper or Coleman because he saw a ton of targets last week. He's seen 17 targets the last 2 weeks.
Yeah, because Shakir he eats up zone coverage, and that's all the Colts are ever running is zone. Top 5 in the position, fantasy points per route run, and his target rate is 28% versus zone. And then you're talking about multiple injuries along that Bills depth chart at wide receiver. So yeah, if you're trying to get away from the downs play, because like apparently everyone love the downs play, then yeah, go a little cheaper, go with Shakir. I think that's not a bad move. Otherwise, yeah, I think Mooney is the other guy that I'm looking at in this range.
Yeah. The last 3 weeks for Khalil Shakir, obviously 7 for 65, 9 for 107, 6 for 50, 8 outs in those 3 games, 0.7, 1.9, negative 0.7. Like he is our LaVisca Chanel.
Holy shnikes, that's like what Bo Nix was doing the first few weeks with every wide receiver. That is literally, you are not kidding. It is an extension of the run game. What about, so we get in that 5,000 range, to me much more intriguing. I like Courtland Sutton. I know the Chiefs are an incredible defense. He's 5,600. He's getting an unbelievable amount of volume. I think they're going to be down. And it's just, he's the most likely guy to get a piece if Bo Nix does anything. I mean, it really is incredible. He scored 15 points or more in 4 or 5 because what happened in that New Orleans game? Was that just the one where they got up so big? Yeah, right. They blew the doors off them, so they didn't throw it.
Yeah.
But I mean, basically in the other 5 games that he's played, 15 points or more, he's finding the end zone. I love it when a guy in this range is getting 10 targets every week. Like, to me, that is the definition of value. I'm assuming because of KC's defensive rank, he's going to be super low owned. What about your boy Rome Odunze, Joe? That's your guy.
I will say, if you're gonna play someone from Chicago, I am as far out, and I'm as far out on DJ Moore as possible, especially in this matchup. And yeah, I think Odunze would be the guy that I'm going with if you're making that play. And New England, I mean, really, Christian Gonzalez is good, and if he's shadowing someone, it's going to be DJ Moore, and then you can attack the other corners on this team. I mean, this defense has fallen off a lot. They play a ton of man defense. And yeah, this season against man, you got Odunze 0.29 fantasy points per route run. Allen's 0.33. DJ Moore's below both of them. Target rates 22% for Allen. It's 16 for Odunze. It's 17% for Moore. So again, there's no reason based on the pricing to go with DJ Moore, and all the more so based on what we've seen the last month. So you could go with Allen, but yeah, I like the idea that Odunze is kind of rounding into form, even though Caleb Williams has not been great as of late. But I think New England is really a bounce back type of defense this year. They're not going to get a lot of pressure.
One of them saw 10 targets than Keenan Allen, 4 for 36. Odunze 7 targets, 5 for 104.
Yeah,
Keenan Allen is a higher ADOT Tyler Boyd. That's who he is right now. He is a higher ADOT. We know he's running all the routes, but like the role he's in, and we know Caleb, has really regressed in the last couple of weeks. Yep. We thought, that it was the bye week. Like, he was starting to kind of hit his stride, and then once the bye week hit, it really just kind of fell off a cliff
Unfortunately, it looks like it was a lot to do with the defenses he played, right? Like he had that really good stretch of defenses that didn't get a lot of pass
Colts,
rush.
Rams, Panthers.
Weren't great in the secondary. And then unfortunately, since then, it's been yikes. Jalen Tolbert, a little interesting, right? 5,100, all the things we said about Dallas. He caught a touchdown last week. Alec Pierce to me is very intriguing with Pittman out. I just think that means he's going to be on the field a little bit more. We know what he can do with one play. Either the Chargers receivers. Yep, that's what I was about to say. Either the Chargers receiver with Quentin Johnson being the one that I like, obviously, more.
Don't mind Juwan Jennings either, 5,100.
That's what I was going to say. Juwan Jennings is the guy I really like in this price range. I mean, Tampa Bay, 6th in fantasy points allowed overall, 2nd if you go since week 5. They're just another team that's just all in. They are going to play zone, 5th highest rate. Juwan Jennings this season against zone. Obviously, I didn't do the math of like who's out what game.
Zone killer though, or no?
Well, I mean that's the thing. They both are. Debo historically, awesome. This season still very good, 0.44 fantasy points per route run. But Jennings is at 0.64. And then the target rate for Debo, it's 20%. For Juwan Jennings, it's 26%.
Oh, wow.
Now, Debo's run 27 more routes. Obviously, he's out there more.
But still, though,
with Ayuk gone,
that's significant.
Yeah, with Ayuk gone, that changes because I think Juwan's going to see, he's going to be the clear number 2 guy in routes run. And, he's killed zone even more than he's killed man. He's been good. He's been good just against everything this year, but he's been better against zone. Tampa Bay runs a ton of zone. Their defensive backfield has gotten ravaged by injuries. The only thing that's scary is all the mouths to feed in San Francisco. It's always the risk. But at 5,100, I feel much better about taking that risk.
And it feels like a good spot too, where like we know obviously CMC is back, Debo, Kittle, he's kind of light in the weeds a little bit as far as here's a guy that we just saw him, week 3, 11 for we're not projecting 1,175 and 3 again. So like he can certainly catch a touchdown and like put up 80 yards, 4 for 80, and that's totally fine. I mean, the dude's been when he has been on the field all 6 games. 24% target per route run, 2.77 yards per route run. Like, look, I know that's a small sample, but I mean, efficiency is what we want. I mean, he's been out there, he's been excellent, and you could probably skew that to like those middle 2 games with that, but still, that just shows how good those games were.
And in those games, if I remember correctly, not all the guys were there. And I know that Ayuk's out, but the rest of the gang, it looks like is getting back together, which is just going to make – and again, Purdy has been so good this year that I'm very excited to see what he can do now with, CMC and all those guys back. I love this 4,400 and down range. Like, just shoot it into my veins. Demario Douglas versus a Chicago team that gets a ton of pressure. Like, I think a ton of targets at both Demario and Hunter Henry. Your boy Ray, I really like this week, Kevin. Love him if London doesn't play. Well, I mean, you talked about him on the waiver wire show. I
was like, I talked about him on one show, and now he's mine.
That's also an expression in the South is your guy, my guy. Noah Brown, 4,300. He's all of a sudden starting to pick it up. Let's say Lattimore is kind of doing not Lattimore. What's the Pittsburgh? Why am I now? Porter Jr. Let's say he does, kind of lock down Terry McLaurin. That could mean bigger things for Noah Brown. Your boy, Joe Matz, Jalen Naylor, who I know has very good versus man, which the Jags run at a very high rate. He scored a lot of touchdowns this year for a guy with just 15 he has 4 touchdowns. He has 15 receptions this year. And then again, Parker Washington, pretty much going to be playing in a majority of lineups. And I love, take your pick, Van Jefferson, Calvin Austin. Washington still gives up a lot of big plays. So whichever, Pittsburgh other wide receiver that you like, I do think that one of them is liable to make at least one big play. I lean Austin because not only is $200 cheaper, he's the guy that's had 2 19-point, games or more. But Van Jefferson has actually seen pretty significant volume here as of late. He's had 8 targets over his last 2. His snaps have gone up each week. His targets have gone up. I know it's gross, but that's what happens when we get into this price range. What is Parker's ownership, Kev, if you don't mind me asking? Is it pretty high?
Probably. I'm scrolling through. I mean, he's sub 3%. It looks like right
sweet.
Here.
That's what I love to hear. Because
1.5%.
He is my favorite play wide receiver this week, both for cash and MME. I just think that at 3,900, there's a good chance he gets 8 to 10 points at least, and he has the upside to get 15 to 20. And because I wanted to be a nerd and go back and look at all of Mac Jones' throws during the preseason, it made me even more ecstatic to see that he caught 6 passes on just 4 drives together with Mac Jones. Any other wide receivers in the cheap range? Any Marquez Valdez-Scantling versus my Atlanta Falcons?
Look, so Keith, I gave you leeway when you were touting Van Jefferson, but I cannot allow you to even put an inkling out there about touting
that was a joke.
I sure hope so. I'll remember that. No, my Tyquan Thornton Memorial slappy pick for under 3,500, 80 Mitchell. Anybody?
Oh my God. Right. I did not know where you were going that. Yes, I do like that with obviously.
He is the Tyquan Thornton. He is the if I'm gonna play somebody in that range that I think can go for a touchdown and like a bunch of yards at a super cheap price, I would play Tyquan Thornton for like 7-8 straight weeks. And I hit like 2 of them. So that's
all of his most
Mitchell
targeted games have been with Flacco, to your point, too. Like
and now Pittman's out too.
Yep,
I don't think there's really an impediment to him getting 75% of routes. I think if they're putting out Ashton Doolin and like if they're running out Anthony Gold in the slot and like letting Doolin play on the outside, it's as Jover as it gets. But I think AD Mitchell can get out there and run routes. I mean, why did you draft him in the first place? Although, why did you draft Anthony Richardson in the first place? I mean, look, it's a conversation. It's a conversation, branching conversation at this point.
Joe, do you want to bring up your boy De'Ami Brown?
Not this week. I will go with the other Brown. I'm with you on the Noah Brown play.
Yes, same.
The Steelers, according to FTN's numbers, are one of only 4 teams to give up more yards this year to what they have as number 2 wide receivers over number 1s. And they're 25th overall in yards given up to number 2 wide receivers. So, yeah, I think the fire up the Noah Brown play.
Yeah, I love that.
All right. I mean, he's looking like, in a world of Olamide Zacchaeus, in a world of De'Ami Browns, Noah Brown is starting to finally like get routes, like as far as a second target. The eternal search for a second target for the Commanders has seemed to land on Noah Brown.
Well, unless you don't include Zach Ertz, who I will never forget Kevin pumping that up right for the season, and I was like, Zach Ertz? And then
we'll talk about that because I got some interesting stuff about Zach Ertz.
He has been. All right, he's got one more question. Defense to start. He has the Bills or drop for the Falcons, Rams, or Giants. If you're streaming, I would drop for the Giants. If I don't know what the Bills have done on a week-to-week basis. I don't think their defense is good enough to holding on to. Do you guys?
No. Give me stream the Giants and enjoy the 6 sacks you're going to get.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, it's the Giants' one strength that's pretty much held true this season is the pass rush, and you're facing Carolina, so
they get sacks. Tight ends this week, just what a treasure trove! Like seriously, do any of you guys like love the guys? Obviously, K. Dotton we trust at 5,500.
I don't know though.
What's the ownership? No. Do the top 5 real quick, Kev.
Let me see tight ends. Travis Kelce, Will Dissly at 15%.
Wow.
Grant Calcaterra, Evan Ingram. We're all over the place here. We're through the.
Do they know that Goddard's back?
Goddard's going to play.
Is that
they
got
to update their ownership.
Who was the 5th guy after Ingram? I'm sorry, Kev.
Look, there's 9% sharp people out there must be that can see the future, that can see in that crystal ball that it's a Grant Calcaterra week.
Obviously. Who was the 5th guy after Ingram, Kev?
Hunter Henry.
Okay.
I do like Otten again this week. I know San Francisco, like they look good, but they're another team that 21 receptions allowed to tight ends in just their last 3 games. So tight ends do catch passes versus them. Now they haven't done a lot with them. Don't get me wrong, but I just feel like with his volume, he's seen 31 targets.
So it's going to be a Cade Otton like compiling week, basically, versus a downfield.
Yeah,
you just hope he gets a touchdown, and it's more like kind of the Atlanta game where I think he had like 9 for 71. You know what I mean? Like where it's just hope he gets 15, 16 points. Again, it's not my favorite play at tight end at all. He's the one though. Evan Ingram's kind of in the same boat that Minnesota gets so much pressure. I could see him having another 10, 12 target game. Like I don't expect him to put up a huge, yardage number, but I could see him catching 6 to 10 passes. And if he falls in the end zone, even better. Are you guys back on Hawkinson, or are you still waiting?
I'm waiting. I'm waiting because he's going to be worked in. I mean, let me look at I think he only ran like 20-something% of routes.
I was trying to look that up last week and I couldn't find it.
Actually, no, 62%. So it's like not bad, but I think I would maybe wait a week. For Hawkinson. You'll probably get the cheaper price. I mean, what's he at right now? 5K? 4,700?
4,700, yeah. He went
so
up
if he scores a touchdown, he's probably up to 5K then.
Oh, no, actually went down. I'm sorry, 500. Wow, they pressed him high last week. Good Lord.
Well, that's the thing about DK is that they always like incrementally price those guys up. But when like they get hurt or something like that, they miss a week and then come back, they don't really take them down that much. Like
CMC being 8K to your point, which is a discount compared to last year. Don't get me wrong, but I love the 4K and down range. Like that's to me where just again shooting in my veins. Taysom Hill, 2 rushing touchdowns versus the Falcons in the first half. The big thing again is just the targets. Like he's going to get rushing. So he's seen 9 targets the last 2 weeks. Like that's significant. The lack of passing weapons. Hunter Henry is just a number 1 wide receiver at the tight end
hen house,
position.
baby.
Go ahead and talk about Ertz because that was the other guy right here, and then there's one other guy just a little bit cheaper that I really like this week.
Yeah, so as far as like Zach Ertz goes, I'm a little worried about his rest of season. What kind of workload he's going to be getting because Ben Sinnott has been running more routes in this offense, and we've seen it.
Yes.
And we've been seeing this, obviously with Dallas Goedert, and then we saw him get traded to Arizona, and then we started to see it with Trey McBride, and then Ertz got hurt, which kind of, sped up that process. But I think with his lack of involvement in week 9, and he went down from 81% to 60% routes, I'm a little worried about if Zach Ertz can get up to where we want him running routes at a clip where we can start him comfortably. With that and Ben Sinnott, I'm a little worried that there could be a flippening in the next couple weeks with Sinnott and Zach Ertz. So that's
you just keep giving me movie titles. Like I can't wait to see in the spring flippening coming to a theater near you.
In a world where a converted fullback takes Zach Ertz's job.
Oh, that's good stuff. The another guy, Saints. Hell, 2 tight ends, Juwan Johnson.
Wow.
Well, I mean, let's look at it. Like the Falcons have had
Falcons have not been good against tight ends.
Real issues with tight ends, and is he not their best down the field pass catcher right now? Cedric Wilson's out, Chris Olave's out, Shaheed's out.
He's no Mason Tipton, but he's pretty good.
I mean, 2 for 41, 3 for 48, 3 for 40. I'm just saying that.
I don't mind. I don't mind. He's like the old pair of jeans. He's a comfortable pair of shoes. Like he feels like a guy you can just go and play and feel fine with your 8.7 DraftKings points.
Can we justify playing any Denver tight end versus the worst defense in the league?
No.
Versus tight end? I didn't think so. I hate it. Anytime there's
I'm offended that you even bring that up.
I have to ask.
Yeah.
I've never been so wrong about a player as I was Greg Dolch, or just
I was excited year one, and we even had a couple moments. There's like a month there his rookie season where
he
it
was
like,
a Hackett
this
guy.
is happening.
He was a
Hackett guy.
He was a Hackett guy. You're right.
Which is just so disappointing for me.
Immediately, disappeared as soon as.
I feel like Rodgers would love that guy though.
Another just deeper format guy. Both Austin Hooper and Hayden Hurst, who Hooper still saw 30 snaps last week.
And I'm disassociated from this conversation.
Yes.
And I do think that
PTSD
Chicago's going to bring the house. Drake May is going to have to get rid of the ball quickly. And then again, like I said, Hayden Hurst. I know it's yucky, but I'm shocked, honestly, that Disley is so much, that
was an interesting thing to learn.
Because, we're now 3 weeks removed from his Arizona game, which Arizona has always been bad versus tight ends.
It does seem eternal.
I am shocked. Wait a minute, is Conklin questionable? Oh man, that would make me even feel more bullish on my Jets double stack there.
He's been questionable since Devontae Adams got there, for being honest.
Oh, okay. Well, then that makes me feel better.
In the general sense, not in the medical.
Oh, I got you. Okay. Any other tight ends?
I'm pointing at one right now. If you want to get really gross, not gross, but to my previous point, yeah.
I like that.
At the start,
I was gonna say, if we're going cheap as hell, I think that's the play. Like, I really like the Taysom play. He had 160 yards total in the 2 games against Atlanta last year, so it's not just like he had one.
He scored double figures in 5 of the last 6 versus Atlanta, and 8.
Yeah, so that's my favorite play. But if we're just like, we need to save all the money because we're getting Justin Jefferson and Saquon Barkley, then Sanat's the guy I'm going with.
What a great lead. Let's build some lineup, boys, and we can talk about defenses when we get there.
All right.
How do we want to – who's our guys this week? Is that where we want to start? Do we just want to start with Barkley and Jefferson and fill in from there?
Could do that. Just totally top-heavy.
Or do we want to start with my Jet stack and go that way?
Oh, that's good counter.
I actually did like that Jet stack, though.
I liked the Rodgers, play. Or I was like, I hadn't really thought about it, but I'm not scared of that Cardinals defense. So
this is a lot. So we can do just Rodgers and Wilson and go from there if you don't want to do the double.
Yeah.
Or if you want to get really deep in the weeds, not saying this as an Aaron Rodgers guy by any means, because this does not involve Rodgers, but combinatorial ownership. Adams, Wilson, Breece Hall.
And you're saying then play a different QB, like say,
and then see where we can go with like a Trey McBride or somebody that, like, if we
run back. Yeah, I'm down with it.
Is that too much? You think?
Nah, hell no.
Because I think that would be good leverage on like people playing Minnesota.
It's the most condensed of offenses.
Philadelphia.
Literally. That's probably 90% of the touches and targets combined.
You look at like the combinatorial stuff with like Philly. AJ Brown and Devonta Smith had a combined 16K. You're getting Garrett Wilson and Devontae Adams at 14.2. So you're saving $1,800 right there just on that pairing. So like I would rather have Wilson and Adams than Brown and Smith like all day. To me, if you ask me, I'm just one man.
What wide receivers have been hurting?
Makes sense to me.
Have been hurting the Jets lately? We know Tank Dell did, right? What Arizona receiver would that be? That would fit that mold.
I'd have to look that.
Let me see as well here.
While you do that, let's check in the defenses here.
George is 38.
I guess Sauce is maybe going to be just all over him, but Harrison's been way better against teams that run a lot of man, and the Jets are ninth in man.
That we remember.
That's a fair point.
Yeah, Sauce hasn't been like the Sauce of the last year or so. Like he's been, I think he's like top 100 in coverage grade for PFF.
Because this Harrison,
not the ragu.
Yeah, this Harrison dip has really been playing a lot of teams that are above average in their zone rate. Because his
go ahead and throw Taysom in there too, bro.
Because his fantasy points per route run jumps from 0.37 to 0.61 going from zone to man. So,
and I actually like throwing Hunter Henry at the flex, and now you're getting to where we can start having a little bit of flexibility.
Literal flat. I see what you did there.
Nice.
You're not the only one that can punt it up. I'm on fire.
Drake May.
That's what I was wondering. Is that too risky, or I know because Chicago is a very good defense.
I don't want any part of this. Are
you disassociating from this?
I love Drake May. I was so disappointed the Giants couldn't get him or Daniels, but
did you hear me, Joe?
It's Chicago. I mean, there's the chance Chicago is just going into the tailspin and everything falls apart. But
Parker, and we run it back with Barkley. Or no,
we can't fit. We ain't gonna be able to fit Barkley in this.
Yeah, I think Barkley's.
If you go Parker Washington, I think you're gonna be surprised with a cheap defense. I really do. Max 4,400.
Right. We can try
3,900.
Let's explore. We're ayahuascaing in the cave right now. We're experimenting.
3,900.
I mean, it's possible. The Vikings have given up 1 million yards. They just
and then you give up the defense. So now we're already up to 6K. You get a super cheap defense.
Titans.
So see,
we got plenty of money actually. Right?
Yeah.
Yeah. We could fit Barkley in there and then probably upgrade Hunter Henry.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Or if we don't want to go, if we want to take Adams out of there, we could throw Jefferson in and then see what we have left at the flex.
We could play Ben Sinnott.
Oh, is it not enough or no?
3,100.
We got enough to do something here. Let's see here. Let me get into this.
Right, the double tight with Ben Sinnott.
I'm going to put it in the Patriots D, actually. Got the Bears.
Why not? The Bears have been...
Caleb's banged up.
To say the least.
What does that give us, 200 extra?
3,300.
Let's see here.
So is there any wide receiver at 3,300 that we have?
So again, the Juwan Johnson I was talking about.
That's true, Juwan.
There. And we could always go Henry. That would give us an extra 100 as well if we don't want to go Taysom. But I do like Taysom.
Trying to look through that 34, 33 area.
Yeah, you're like the
Buffalo. I mean, we have the if we go Henry, you could put Adonai Mitchell in there.
Ooh.
Instead of Taysom?
Yes.
Yeah.
Put Henry and then your boy.
Everybody's boy.
You're just collecting boys.
It's a Southern thing. I promise you. It's not anything like I forget that some people are like, "Hey, dude, I'm not the one pumping." It's like we just say your boy.
When Adonai Mitchell scores his touchdown this week on a 60-yard bomb, I'm gonna be like, that was TBD's guy right there. That's his boy.
Old Kevin TBD boy. Mitchell.
Yeah, when we score 68 points in the DoorDash drive time series, we're loving life.
You hate this.
This is definitely a team that's going to not have anyone else have this same lineup. This is a unique lineup, I feel like.
Yes, this is as unique as it gets. I do believe that.
But it's actually got some correlation.
Well, we got Saquon and Jefferson in there, and then, you can just kind of fuck around and figure out what you want. So I don't think it's that bad, actually.
I mean, Garrett Wilson, Hunter, I don't hate this
Breece
line.
Hall.
Breece Hall,
look, anytime you can get the tight end defense correlation, you got to do it.
That's right.
All day. I don't mind. I mean, it's a pretty good lineup.
I wasn't sure when we started it out, but I'm pretty
going down. But see, I think Henry's one of the better. I was gonna say we could go all the way down to Juwan Johnson at 3,300. Then you can get up to 4K with the flex if you want to do that. But I don't know if there's much difference there to where Henry is at least
right. Because who am I grabbing at 4K?
I'm gonna throw in.
We could just double tap the Saints tight end. That's the other option. Is you could run.
Juwan, I took Barkley out. If I put Bijan in and then put in Taysom Hill.
Ooh, now we're talking.
Oh, okay.
Then I think we still got enough for
And we got enough for Hunter Henry.
3,900.
And then I'm back with Hunter Henry, number one target.
We could get back at Hunter Henry, double tight end.
No, I really like that.
Yeah, I don't know if there's a receiver I like more than Hunter Henry in this price range. So,
there's definitely not for me.
You're not in with the brand new Dallas Cowboy Jonathan Mingo.
That may have been the funniest thing to happen this season for me personally as a Giants fan. You know, it's a rough life, but that made me laugh.
Hi, Wendy.
I felt bad because I'm sure Kevin was like, "What are you giggling about?" Because he was doing the read, which he has to do every week for the IDP, which that's tough to just.
That's an exercise of ball knowing if there ever was one,
right?
Having to figure out how to spell.
Laughing as well, Joe, but I was giggling. Well, the reason I was giggling was because ESPN and their wisdom put up a friggin' what do you call it? A poll. With which wide receiver acquisition trade, midseason trade.
They put Mingo in there?
Yes, they put Mingo and Mike Williams. And what was crazy was like 9% of people voted for both of them. So like you had, I believe.
Because you have to have a Cowboy in there for any poll.
Right. And you know, like when when Marcellus Wiley reads his memo for the show notes and he has to defend Jonathan Mingo. You know he has to go to that Ben Affleck, "Hello, darkness, my old friend."
Love seeing Wendy in the chat. One of the greatest human beings on the face of the planet. Yes, we do. Very pro Wendy on the.
Okay, so this lineup now with Hunter Hendog with the Hen House, Taysom Hill, and Bijan. I mean, I don't think you're losing much with Bijan from Barkley.
Just an FYI, boys. I'm putting this in the
that
Millie.
Bijan one's that's a great matchup. So
I'm literally right now putting this in the Millie Maker. If we win it, I will because this is.
So what did we swap out? We had Adonai.
We had 80. We had Hunter. We had Henry in.
So we had Henry. So it's just going from Adonai to Taysom and then
flipping down from Titans to Patriots.
Bijan Saquon.
Yeah, and Saquon.
Yeah, I think I do like this more.
Like, how many entries are you doing, Keith, in the Millie this week? Just one. That's all I need is one.
One is all you need.
It's just one.
Exactly.
To quote Tenacious D.
It's like when I buy lottery tickets. It's like my odds are terrible, so I'm just going to buy the one because then I have a chance.
It's like best ball. We're all going to fucking lose anyway.
Yeah.
Just do it.
I actually have one best ball team that is doing very well, Kev. You'd be proud of me. And it's the team that, to me, made the least sense after the draft. But isn't that the way this stuff works? Especially this season.
Look, my Chase Brown, Chuba Hubbard teams are like killing everything.
What a humble brag by Wendy. Wow. Thanks, Wendy. Well, you know what? We had Nate Markham on our show a few weeks ago, so take that.
Yeah.
Former Giant Rashad Jennings, so I love that.
That's right. You could at least.
He's been in a couple fantasy lineups of mine.
Joe
not by choice, probably because someone got hurt.
But he was there. He was one of those guys I was handcuffing because what was he, the Jags backup for years for
MJD?
Yeah. He was on like two of my teams for sure because I was like, hey, MJD goes down, Rashad's gonna eat.
Yeah. And then Blaine Gabbert, just screw that.
All right, boys, we're putting that in there. Millie Maker.
All right.
Well, we got to figure out how we're going to spend our money. So,
well, for starters, nobody will ever hear from us again outside of the three of us. We'll keep in touch, obviously, because we got to split the cash.
We'll always be bonded over this.
It was nice knowing you guys. We'll write a book on how to win the Millie Maker, and it starts with stacking your tight end with a defense, playing Mac Jones when at all possible. And
look, if this wins the Millie, I will buy a Mac Jones jersey for everybody that follows me on Twitter.
A Mac Jones Jags jersey.
I'll buy a signed Mac Jones jersey if we win the Millie, for sure. So
McCorkle, brother.
What a great way to end the show. Guys, anything you want to plug or do anything before we get out of here?
The Rotoballer stuff, my article that comes out every Thursday morning / afternoon, every player, every snap, every route pinned on my Twitter. So go check that out. A lot of good stuff in there every single week. Other than that, of course, Fantasy and Frames waiver wire article. I'll be doing that for the month of November as well. Comes out every Tuesday. Look ahead waivers on Optimus Fantasy comes. That should be out now. Go check that out for week 11. Other than that, not so much else.
I just want to say that my beard is catching up to both of you guys. So I know right now I'm in third in the best beard on this show, but I think in the next month, at the rate that it's growing, I'll be closer to second than I am right now, because it takes a long time. You would think somebody whose hair on their head grows at an unbelievably rapid rate would be able to grow hair a little bit faster on the
as
face.
Kevin and I know, those are not things that are linked.
Yeah, it's not coordinated at all. I don't get it.
No, trust me. I mean, you can kind of see it. We're there's good people on both sides of the hair on that,
I mean, my ability to grow a beard has been inverse to the amount of hair that's been on my head throughout my life. So
but as always, love doing the show with you guys. You are the best. Excited to continue doing this moving forward. And we'll see you folks. I was going to say the B word, and I was like, Keith, that's really inappropriate. I was going to use the biatches, but I was like, damn, Keith, let's not end it on a negative note. We've had such a good time.
We got an image.
Trump comes back, and it all goes to shit. Look at this.
Let's not go there. So we'll see you guys and gals later.
There we
Thanks
go.
for hanging out with us. See you.